current position with Whitehall Park School is that they've completed a consultation. We have responded, and lots of other people locally have responded, making their feelings clear. Now the Department for Education and the Education Funding Agency have to make a decision on whether they're going to proceed and open a free school on that site and provide the money. And if they do want to do that, then they'll have to go through a process of taking the land from us. There are a number of reasons for opposing the free school. Among them are that we had planned to build 80 homes for social rent on that site. We have 18,000 people on our housing waiting list and 2,000 people living in overcrowding. That means siblings sharing rooms when they're too old, parents sleeping in living rooms. It's a dire state of affairs. We had rebuilt the original school on that site down the road, so we'd re-provided it in an excellent building. There's no shortage of school places in the area. There's in fact a surplus in the borough, and we don't believe there's any need or actually demand from parents for a school on that site. Also, we will lose £3 million from that site if it's taken, which we would have used to repair other schools, playgrounds, roofs, windows. The impact of losing the £3 million is that we had budgeted for that in our capital programme as part of the deal of rebuilding the original school down the road. So we had already allocated that money for a wide range of work, not for anything in particular, but towards work which is essential for schools. Many of them have problems with their playgrounds, with their roofs, with their wiring, things like that, their plumbing. The routine capital work that you need to do, and those budgets are tight, and losing £3 million leaves a severe black hole in our ability to help schools provide an excellent learning environment for their pupils. I would concede that planning school places and demand is an art rather than a science often, but we've gone through a rigorous process in Islington where we've looked at the impact of future housing developments on requirement for school places and what that will mean for us in the future, and we show that we won't need any places additionally until 2017. And that part of the borough in the north is where the least development is happening. Most development is happening in the south, around the edge of the city, and we know that we'll need additional forms of entry for primary school in the south. That's a fact, which is partly why we offered an alternative site for the free school in the middle of the borough. In the north of the borough, there's no new major housing developments coming through which are likely to have an impact that would demand additional forms of entry. We still have enough vacancies in the area to accommodate any planned development. And as a whole, there aren't the building projects coming through that would mean that we'd need more places. Obviously, you never know what's going to happen in 50 years' time, but we have to plan within a reasonable time frame, and that's what we've done. Obviously, this situation with the squatters wouldn't have arisen had we been able to proceed with our original plans to build housing on the site. The question never would have come up. Ultimately, we don't think it's right for the taxpayers of Islington to have a cost to them from the activities of the squatters, and we have sought to remove them. We've asked them to leave, and we're seeking an eviction, and we're absolutely committed to that. In terms of the caretakers, it's difficult to defend paying the cost of up to £40,000 a year to keep caretakers in a building which is about to be taken from us against our will by the government. It's something I think people would find hard to understand given the pressure on our services and the cuts we're likely to have to make in the future. It's an interesting comparison that to rebuild a school on the site probably will cost in the region of £15 million, which is about 3 million, just a bit more than we're going to have to cut from our budget for children's services across the borough in the future. So they're using money for a school which we don't want or need, where we're losing an almost equivalent sum from the schools that we do have. I think we have to, as taxpayers and elected representatives, we have to ask very difficult questions of the private companies that want to operate these free schools as to why they want to do it. It's clear that they have different arms and they're able to sell services to their own schools now which could operate at a profit. So a different part of the company may be making a profit now from the free schools. And in the future, they may have plans or have been given assurances that they would be able to make a profit from the school itself. And I think what we would all be saying is, that is money, if it's going to be taken as a management fee or a profit, that's money that's being taken away from education and given to a private company. Now, if the schools in Islington weren't of a high enough standard, so it was necessary for something like that, a company to come in and revolutionise our teaching and learning, that might be one argument. But in Islington, we are 5th in the country for having the greatest number of good and outstanding schools. We don't have a problem with school improvement. That's a really difficult question to ask, whether the Labour Party should be tolerating parent-led academies in the future. I think ultimately, as a local politician, it's hard to look beyond your own area. I don't know about the ins and outs of education in other boroughs or other parts of the country. And I suppose hypothetically, it may be possible that if a council is failing to provide education of a sufficient quantum or quality, then there may be an argument for parent-led academies, for groups of parents coming together to address municipal failure. But in this local authority, we don't have parents making that demand, and we don't have a question in terms of a need for places, as other boroughs do, or a problem with school quality, as other boroughs or local authorities do. So the question would never arise. And certainly in the case of our proposed free school, we don't have parents coming to us petitioning us and calling for the school. Most of the people who are residents in the area who seem to be supporting the application seem to be older and have children who've left home and moved on. I haven't met any parents who have personally, I've seen a couple at a public meeting, but I haven't seen a group of parents who are demanding a free school on this site. And to be honest with you, if a group of parents came to me with serious concerns about their children's education, I would listen to it. Of course I would, because we have a legal obligation to educate their children appropriately and to an excellent standard. And I take that very seriously. And ultimately, the kind of school they're educated in is less important than the excellence of their education. And I think we should all agree about that. You know, it doesn't matter, in a sense, what flavour of school it is, as long as the right result happens. But in Islington, we just don't have that demand. Our schools are great. We don't have a problem that needs an answer.